Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is a special show, Sunday, July 25th, brought to you by our friends at Naira and Naira Bets. Want to remind everybody about the big contest coming up from Naira. We've got the low rollers up here. Naira Bets has weekend contests, but the one that we're really meant to be talking about is on Whitney Day, a $3,000 live bankroll event. You can play on track at Saratoga, limited seating on that, or online with Naira Bets. To learn more about that, go over to Naira.com. We'll also be sending out plenty of information about that one. This show was originally meant to be an In the Money Plus show that we were just going to do because it was a pick six at Saratoga. And then it turns out there's going to be a $250,000 carryover in that pick six because of the chaotic, I'll just call it, result of the race last night, a race at Saratoga won by a trainer I think I've literally never heard of. That doesn't happen too often, but it's kind of cool. We get this carryover triggered, and the man who's here to talk about it with us, somebody on whose opinion I rely when it comes to all matters related to handicapping and betting. He's my buddy. He is professional horse player, Sean Borman. Sean, how are things?
Wonderful, Pete. Thanks for having me on.
What did you think of the result of that last race last night? Were you following along closely?
I was at the pool with the family, but that was a horse I actually liked in that race a little bit. My figures coming out of Delaware were better than what was posted. So that horse made total sense to me. The earlier results didn't make any damn sense, though.
Mike's Girl. Mike's Girl is the name of the horse. And I mean, I can see it if I squint based on numbers, especially with what you said there. There was plenty of other chaos along the way, as you point out. How's your meet been going so far?
It's okay. I'm sort of just, I would say, even for the meet, but I think it's making enough sense. And you just got to be careful in the races that look like they're going to be chaotic. Try to weed your way through those. But for the most part, I'm happy with where I'm at.
Charles Frock, that was the name of the trainer of the winner of the last race, Mike's Girl. Hopefully I'll have the pleasure of making his acquaintance at some point. I suppose it was an eye-catching jockey booking, too, with Jose Ortiz seeing fit to ride in that one. But anyway, because of that result, we get this nice carryover, and let's talk about it. Big news, we are off the turf. Want to let people know that right away. It rained plenty overnight here, so I'm not surprised at all to hear that we're off the turf. And honestly, I'd rather them take it off, and now we can focus on this pick six and knowing what surface we're on. We don't have the scratches yet. We'll have them a little bit later, but we'll do our best to hypothesize about who's going to be staying in. It starts off in race number 5, 3:21 p.m. Eastern. We are going with a $40,000 claimer, 3 and up fillies and mares, 5.5 furlongs on the Saratoga dirt. And for me, my pick in this race was going to be similar on both surfaces. I feel like number 7, Defy Expectations, looks to be the best speed or among the best speed, and on pedigree should probably handle dirt. I actually wasn't too crazy about any of the MTOs in this spot, Sean. How do you see this one?
Pretty similar. I was going to use the 10 horse Lime as my top pick. I just really like the way she's coming into the race, and she's proven on all 3 surfaces. I completely agree that 7 is totally live, and I completely agree that the MTOs look terrible. So just depending on how the scratches change the complexion of this race from a pace standpoint, I'm going to focus on 7 and 10 unless there's some weird and scratches I don't anticipate.
One other one I'll mention that I just thought was a little bit interesting off the claim and feels like should dirt on pedigree, though she's never run on the surface, was number 8, Miss Mamba. I think I'll probably list as a B going out for Joe Sharp, who does pretty well with new acquisitions and again, just completely unexposed on the dirt. Probably needs to show more speed than she has in those turf races, but just one I want to mention who might be a little bit of a price to keep on side. Any other thoughts on this 5th race at Saratoga?
Yeah, I think we should probably talk about the two horse a little bit. Just Maker is totally on fire. Um, she's an exaggerator, so you would think wet dirt would be okay, and get Irad Ortiz. So I think that one should probably be used at least as a backup horse. Um, Nobody else in here really interested me that much.
All right, well that'll be the way we draw it out. I'm going to go with the 7 as an A, the 8 Mamba as a B. Sean's numbers I'm going to list as 10-7 on the A line and the 2 on the B line. And now we will make a B line for race number 6. We've got 2-year-old maiden fillies going 6 furlongs on the dirt. Couple stood out to me in here, Sean, starting with number 2, 4 Dawn. We're talking about trainers off to a good start at the meet. Brad Cox certainly fits in that category. The Nyquist numbers are very good first time out. The Dam has dropped 5 winners from 5 starters. I know that's something that you look at as well. Only one of them has won first time out, but 4 Dawn, the 2, has a live look. And then number 5, Demand Respect. I think the name says it all in this spot for Chad Brown. This is a Dam who is 4 winners from 4 to make it to the races. And first time out, I love this new little feature in DRF Formulator where you can, at a glance, see how the babies have done first time out. And 2 of them have won and another ran third. The Union Rags babies can win first time out. And I like the look of that gate drill as well. I thought 2 and 5 gets you a pretty good start in race number 6. Very curious to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I would definitely use those two. I would also use the 4 horse for Pletcher. Just experience. Experience means a lot in these baby races. And just, I would also say to look at the double probables coming out of the 5th race, and try to read the board a little bit. If some of these others are catching sort of funny money or something like that you should probably toss them in as well.
I love that idea. Looking at the double before the pick 6 sequence starts, see who's catching cash as maybe a proxy for a little bit of workout ability on these first-time starters. I eventually decided against number 3, Lemieux, but worth a quick mention anyway for the form to Happy Soul, who's been so impressive so far in her couple of races. Ultimately, the vet scratch at Belmont, there was just a few things that made me wonder. The Cassie stats with the second-time starters up here, they're not that great. I decided to leave Lemieux off the tickets. You have anything here at a longer price to maybe think about throwing in as a backup, or do you think you get out 254?
It's tough to leave Clement and Rosario off a ticket, but the one thing I'll say about the 3, even against those Cassie stats, I mean, he had that horse run really well yesterday, second time. That looked very similar to this one. I thought just had sort of average figures, and I didn't like it all really, but she ran well. That was probably a pretty bad race yesterday in hindsight, but I could see using the Cassie as a backup just at a price maybe.
Yeah, I'll list those both on your line just so we can have some mention in there on a horse we spent a little bit of time talking about. And then of course, at the end of the day, if you're an In the Money Plus subscriber, we send around the notes from this show, and they're certainly not meant to be gospel, just the ideas. If you happen to think this is a spread race and you want to go a little bit deeper, you've got stronger opinions elsewhere, you can incorporate everything. And then if you can pick and choose as well. If you're spread in other places and you just want to look at the horses that we agree on or something like that, you can use them that way. It's really the picks grid is really just supposed to help you, and you use it according to your betting personality and whatever suits you. It's not a tip sheet. It's not meant to be gospel. It's just a way for folks to be able to look down at a glance and remember what we talked about on the show. I know that from my own podcast listening. Sometimes when you hear the show and you're entertained by the show, and then after the show you're trying to remember what people said, the picks grid from In the Money Plus hopefully obviates the need to try to remember these things yourself. InTheMoneyPodcast.com/plus to learn more about that. Let's talk about race number 7, Sean. 3-and-up filly and mare, starter allowance types, going 6 furlongs on the dirt, a race that Timeform US says is going to favor runners on or near the lead. Very curious to hear what you think about this one. Big favorite in here to contend with in Kaylee's Sister. Are you with or against?
That's a very good question. She looks like she's probably going to dominate this race. The only question I have is on my stuff, her figure sort of went down last time, and I can't really find a great reason why. So that gives me a little pause to single a really short priced horse that, there might be something wrong with her. I don't really know. But this is one of those races where you just got to make the decision. Do I single and move on, or do I spread? And that's sort of bankroll dependent for a lot of people. I think I'm going to try to get through it with pressing the 7, and then I'm going to use the 6 as my lone backup horse, I think, and just hope I can get through this race. I'm not real comfortable in here, to be honest.
I agree with everything you said. Kaylee's Sister on with her speed, with her figures, with Brad Cox calling the shots, super duper obvious. But the other thing that gave me pause was just being beaten twice odds on. I mean, that's not great. That can be merely circumstantial, but in this case, combined with that slight potential decline, I don't know. I don't really know what to do. I think you're right, though. Probably the best move is to at least try to get through with her, play that ticket a couple of extra times if you're going to bother using her, because you don't want to use her equally with whatever you decide to do on the backup line and then end up getting through the leg and losing too much equity in this spot. I thought there were 3 potential alternatives. You mentioned one of them, the 6, Lot of Honey, getting back on the best surface after the turf experiment. The dirt race looked like something to potentially build on. But then the 2 horses coming out of the same race, I'm also tempted to sneak in there somewhere. The 2, Cadota Pay, consistent sort, going out for Pat Reynolds, who does very well with the new acquisitions. And then the 3, Master of Hope, beat the 2 last time out and has Noda in the corner. Now, the barn's not off to the greatest start at the meet. They do have a win. They got a bunch of thirds. I was trying to look and see if they've been unlucky. I looked at those 4 thirds and was looking to see, hey, are all these horses improving their figures? Is maybe Noda sneaky hot despite the 1-for-14 record? I didn't see any evidence of it. It looked like most of his horses were just running the same figures that they'd run at Belmont. So it's not like, oh, this is some hot trainer play, as much as if I'm going to consider the 2, I probably should consider the 3 who beat the 2 last time. I like your idea of the 6 probably more. If I end up having to drop some backups, I might mirror you and go 7 on the A line, 6 more on the B line. But for now, I'm going to leave 2, 3, and 6 in the mix and see what happens. Anything else on race 7?
No, I think that basically sums it up.
All right, let's talk about race number 8. Now, this is a funny one because we got enough main track onlys that the race really does reinvent itself when we get on to the dirt. 3-and-up allowance types going 1 1/8 miles on the dirt now in this off the turf configuration. I was very boring off turf, so I'm just going to jump in that I thought that Yankee Division looked like he might take a lot of beating. Winning type, 6 of 18 lifetime, has the best speed figures, has the best pace figures, has among the best speed figures. Could it be as simple as Yankee Division in here? Who else do you like, if assuming you like that one at all?
He can win. I don't love him. I think he's had some good setups and was able to win with good setups. But I really like Dak Daniels in here. Got trip over the track. I thought that was a very impressive race. It came back fast for me. I've got him as the fastest speed figure. He's tactical. Depending on the scratches, it's hard to say this without knowing who's in and who's out. But I'm thinking Dak Daniels might just be a stone single for me.
I do notice the closing into the blue fractions last time and look to see out the trip very well. back at the mile and an eighth today. I'm definitely understanding the case there. Did you have any others to potentially highlight amongst the MTOs, or a turf horse who you thought might do okay if they decide to stick in? I thought this was a pretty interesting race on turf, but all my thoughts for that are out the window now.
Yeah, I think City Man is interesting if he stays in. He's, I think really improved from 3 to 4, and he's proven enough on dirt to where I think he can hold his form on that surface. So he's definitely interesting. And then the 11 Cavalry Charge is another one that I think is fairly interesting. At a price, he's probably a cut below these other ones I've mentioned, but his last race impresses me, and seems like he's fine on dirt.
Several good ideas there from Sean in the 8th race. Let's move on to the 9th race. We've got graded stakes action in the Chuvy. 4 and up filly and mares going a mile and an eighth on the dirt. I found it hard to look past number 4, Dunbar Road. Her career highlight came up here in the Alabama a couple of years ago. Sounds like the throat issues that have bothered her earlier this year and last year are cleared up. Meant to be training well, according to Chad Brown. I definitely want plenty of 4s on my tickets. And then I was also going to mention Crystal Ball, who I thought could get a good situation, maybe being the best of speed in this spot. So for me, it was the 4 as an A and the 6 as a B. Who do you like in our featured race?
This is a spread race for me. I don't trust Dunbar Road at all. She's obviously very talented when she fires, but sometimes she just doesn't. I understand the throat issue, but I can't totally rely on a horse that may or may not run her best race at a short price. I think the other 2 Chads are interesting. The 2 horse apparently has been working right with Dunbar Road and holding her own. And then Royal Flag, I really like her last race, and she seems to be getting a little better, and that might not get the best pace scenario today, but I think she's tactical enough to overcome that. And then Antoinette and Crystal Ball are both live in my opinion. So this is a total spread race for me.
If I forced you to make a top pick, where would you go?
Great question. Can we tag Scotty in and just use his algorithm to make the pick? Because I've just got like paper and a red pen here. I would say my top pick would be the 7.
Okay, and you're full in terms of grading them A's and B's, or is it really just playing them pretty much equally according to the prices?
No, I would say 2, 4, 7 is A's, 5, 6 is B's.
All right, so 7, 4, 2 on the top line, and then 5 and 6 on the bottom line. Since you mentioned Scotty and the algorithm, let's go and take a look at what the Equinedge software likes here in race number 9. Now it'll update if there's any scratches as opposed to thing, but pretty straightforward. The Dunbar Road comes out top on the sort of main algorithm with Antoinette second. But this is an interesting horse to discuss, who you didn't mention and I didn't mention, who his long shot algorithm throws up, is the number 1 Horologist. Now, for me, those last 2 efforts have been so meh that I was tempted to avoid. But I mean, if you cherry pick her best bits of form, she certainly fits in this spot. How put off are you by the 2 subpar efforts that we've seen recently from Horologist?
Pretty put off. And I don't even like her win 3 back, honestly. I just don't think she's the same horse she was. Now, her best races, like you said, can win this race. I just don't see her coming back to those at all.
I will probably leave off of tickets, and I will still send a congratulatory text to our friends at Medallion Racing if a Horologist ends up stuffing us in a locker in today's Pick 6. Sometimes you be happy for your friends and lament your own betting decisions if it doesn't work out. Let's talk about race number 10, Sean. We've got 3 and up claimers, $20,000 going a mile and an eighth on the dirt. How are we going to get paid? I think there's a very live-looking favorite in here. Curious to get your take.
Yeah, this is another one where the favorite looks like the most likely winner and has the best figures and figures to get a great trip. But I'm just iffy. Doesn't it just seem like they're trying to give this horse away? They keep winning and dropping and winning and dropping. Uh, Something about that horse just bothers me. But it's
There
another
was
race.
a there was a void claim even in was it off the race two back was a void claim for Mubarmage number 8. I think today might be the day that the horse finally gets taken. I give a wide berth when it comes to up here, and just knowing how much wins mean to people, that the seemingly questionable economic decision. I feel like most of these horses run when they're from the top barns, but that's how I saw it. But I want to, we're here to get your expertise.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you just said. And the 8 is definitely the most likely winner, and will have the majority of my money on it. I think I'm going to use maybe a couple backups in here as well. The 1 and the 2 both look to be improving to me. The 1 I'll use very little, but I'm going to use, and then the 2 just looks like it can get a good trip, and I think sort of took the worst of it against the favorite last time. So maybe switching the post, and if there's a little problem with the favorite, the 2 could maybe reverse things. So those would be my 2 B horses.
I like the sound of it. In terms of backups, I'll see what I can afford. I was thinking if there was a horse that I had to just go with in the sequence. I don't love always singling in the last leg of a pick 6. I feel like you end up making a very, very complicated win bet that can get extremely expensive if you're not alive going into the last leg. So the idea of taking another look and grinding on this a little bit more to get some more backups in is probably smart for those who have the budget to afford it. So I'll take that under advisement and seriously consider throwing in your 1 and 2 in some combinations that can allow it. How do you describe your overall feelings about the sequence? Is it one you're excited to play, or feeling more obligated to play because of the carryover?
I'm going to say obligated. It's a sort of a tricky sequence in my opinion, because there's a world where this thing pays $400. If the Cox wins and the Pletcher wins the last, the logical 2-year-old wins, and because of that, you've just got to be very careful in how you weight your opinions and how you play your tickets. So it's not one I'm really jazzed up about, but I'm going to play it. Hopefully I can play it well. And honestly, the way my meet's gone so far, the ones that I've been excited about, I've done terrible in. The ones I've been sort of okay about, I've hit. So it's just pick 6s are strange animals.
No doubt about it. Well, thank you for coming on and giving your thoughts. I want to ask you your opinion. Been a lot of debate online about yesterday's CCA Oaks, and I've heard a lot of people. Well, no, I'll ask you your opinion first, and then I'll chime in by. What were your general thoughts on Malathaat's performance and the race yesterday in the CCA Oaks?
I thought she ran well. I mean, she got attacked twice, basically. Was very game in the lane. I think, was it Maracuja? Is that the name of that horse?
Yep, that was the winner. Brilliant ride.
I thought that was a great ride, and that horse was dead live. I was stupid enough to play a straight exact, a 1-2, and not flip it, just because I thought she was live, but I just didn't think she would win, which was a huge mistake, obviously. I think Malathaat ran well. I don't see any problem with that race.
I agree. I've seen a lot of she had no excuse. I feel like she had nothing but excuses. To me, the 4-horse field actually worked against her, especially coupled with the draw. I don't think a mistake was made at all going from down at the rail. And the reason I figured you might agree with me is you've talked on these airwaves before about horses who sort of an underrated factor, underrated excuses, horses just in difficult situations or situations where they're not necessarily able to fire their best. Just because many horses do their best work when they can just go to the lead and front run and forget about it doesn't mean that's the right situation for every horse. And I think Malathot drawn outside with a target is a lot better than Malathot having to break from the rail and make the running. And again, I don't think there was any tactical problem with the ride. I just think it took her out of what her best game is. And I think she's going to move up several lengths off that, especially given how much she moved up second off the layoff in the last deal, going from the Ashland to the Oaks. I think she's going to be a very likely winner for the Alabama, and a horse that, I shouldn't be saying this. We should be hoping more people question her. Maybe we could actually get a halfway decent price in 4 weeks' time.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Going to the lead and dueling on the rail is not her game. She wants the trip that Malathot or that Maracuja got, basically. I mean, she wants to be outside that situation and not in the midst of it down on the rail. So I think you're exactly right. I was, I think I even texted you and Jake and JK after the race that I think she's going to get a lot out of that and just improve. But we'll see.
Were you saying that based on the specifics of having different horses make runs that are having to do so much running, or were you more looking at her pattern of behavior from the Ashland to the Kentucky Oaks, like I had mentioned before?
Well, it was mainly based on what we just talked about. That's not, I had heard early in the day that they were going to send her, and while that was the right tactics for yesterday, I don't think that's exactly what she wants to do. I think she's a better horse, getting the trip she got in the Oaks and the race at Keeneland. So, I think having to fend off Maracuja early and then fend off Clairiere and then try to fend off Maracuja again when she came running, I think that was a great race for her. It's just going to set her up to improve and get better, in my opinion.
And Clairiere's worth talking about. To me, Irad Ortiz ran a great race there. He was trying to win. That wasn't a ride. If they were just trying to run second, I guess you could say that wasn't a great ride. But he was very aggressive, because that's what you would have needed to do to beat Malathot in that spot. And I respect that. But then, of course, you really got to give all the credit to Santana, who not only, as you mentioned, prompted the pace, but then ended up setting the table for himself without having to expend too much energy, and ends up pulling an absolutely perfect trip to just get by. I mean, I have a feeling next time I'm going to look back and say last time was the time for Maracuja, just because that was such terrific handling and a great situation for her. Am I underselling her a little bit in terms of her ability to maybe confirm that form with Malathot down the road?
I mean, yeah, you might be a little bit, just because, in my opinion, it's very hard to do what that horse did. I mean, she went up and engaged a really good horse, and Santana was smart enough to realize he needed to get out of that situation, and that he had enough horse to get out of that situation and still run. But then, she dropped 2-3 lengths behind those two around the turn, and then still finished like that. She ran really well too. I'm, if they meet again in the Alabama, I'm going to be sort of torn on who I want to bet.
That's interesting. And again, like who shows up and what the situation looks like, and even what the draw are might all play into it. I'm not ruling out Maracuja being able to run really well. I've sort of already made up my mind that I want Malathot next time, unless there's something similar that happens in that spot. But maybe I'm being stubborn. And of course, we got to let the prices dictate. If the whole world sees what I see and Malathot's odds on again, and you can get some juice in the price on Maracuja, then obviously you got to be flexible.
That's exactly right. It's all about the situation that presents itself day of the race. And, we can sit here and analyze yesterday's race all we want to, and then this situation could be totally different when they run back against each other, if they do. So that's the number one factor, in my opinion, is what is today's pace situation, who's in today's race, and how do these horses, handle that? How will they handle that?
But Sean, If we didn't engage in these kind of thought experiments, how would we fill all these hours of podcasts we do over here on the In the
Well,
Money Media Network?
that's a good point. And I'm not saying this is a worthless conversation at all. It's a very important conversation, but it's just you need to sort of have a hierarchy in your mind of how you look at races. And for me, the number one factor is what is today's pace scenario in today's situation versus how they ran last time. A perfect example, I think, was the turf stake opening weekend with the two Europeans. On paper, in my opinion, that race looked exactly like the one at Belmont. And I screwed it up because I sort of overthought it. On paper, the two Europeans looked the best. They were going to get the same situation. And you could have just replayed that exacta again and scored. But I got in there and tried to say, well, they both got perfect trips last time, blah, blah, blah. And I messed that race up. So, you know, it's a tricky thing. I mean, handicapping's not easy.
It's easy to overthink things, but the other funny one about that was it was a good case of where somebody like yourself who likes to fade the narrative, I would have thought would have had an advantage, because all you heard from people who look at horses, and I'm in this crew as well from going down to the paddock, and wow, Summer Romance looks to be doing a little bit better than Althequa right now. And if all you had was paper and you didn't hear that chatter, I don't know why you would have had Althequa listed behind Summer Romance. Althequa had every reason to confirm that form on paper, but then I got myself stuck into the narrative and put myself away.
Yeah, and I did the same thing. I bought in that those two, sort of the last time was the time for those two, and that that Harvey's Little Goyle was going to be able to engage Summer Romance and beat her, and the Chads and blah 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 blah. But if I, after the race, I just sat there and stared at my PPs for like 5 minutes, and I was just like, shit, I had these horses 3 lengths better than all the Americans, and I know Althequa can run down the other one. She's already proven that. Why did I not score in that race? But I didn't. So
while we're looking backwards, let's just do a quick word on the Caress from yesterday. Super impressive performance from Caravel. The controversy of the race being the business with Jakarta, who was, I feel like the track was in a bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation once that scratch was announced. Surely if they'd had their druthers, they would have wanted the horse to run. They make more money with more wagering interest. And at the same time, I get that it's unfair to not let the horse run at that point. Maybe in a perfect world, the clerical error or whatever it was just never happens. But let me ask you this. Going into the race, if Jakarta wasn't running, I think I would have picked Robin Sparkles. And I do think, even though Jakarta couldn't engage Robin Sparkles, the idea that that she was running in the race probably did make her, Robin Sparkles, have to run faster than ideal. But Caravel was so good, I'm not sure it mattered at all in the end if Jakarta was in there or not. What were your thoughts on the Caress?
Well, strictly from handicapping, it made zero difference to me. Robin Sparkles is one of these complete fraud speed horses that finishes like a 10 claimer, and she was getting beat by Caravel if it was just the two of them in there, in my opinion. On the other thing, can we run a stake race in this country without something going wrong ever nowadays? It's just ridiculous. What goes on in this industry now it's just laughable. It has most of it has no bearing on handicapping. You could just sort of put it to the side, but it's just the state of the industry is just pathetic at this point.
I assume you're mostly frustrated about the timing stuff when you're talking about that.
Just all of it. What exactly happened yesterday? It was just a clerical error?
To be honest, I don't even know. I just know that the horse appeared as a scratch, and because of that, they decided it would be unfair to people who saw that the horse was scratched to have the horse run as a betting interest. And, from their point of view, I could see why they would have thought that, but it's also confusing potentially to people who then handicap the race thinking the horse was at. Like I said, I think there was a lot of damned if you do, damned if you don't. And to their credit, they chose the option that was less good for their coffers, thinking they were protecting the public. It's just a bad situation to be in.
Yeah, no, the horse was definitely listed as an early scratch because I scratched it in my PPs, and then when they came back on, like 30 minutes later, they listed it as purse money only. So somebody screwed up. But I mean, this isn't difficult. You know what I mean? Like there should be processes and checks and balances to where that kind of stuff should never happen, honestly. And then you mentioned the timing stuff. Like, yeah, none of this should ever happen. It's just, I don't know. This is a podcast in and of itself, but
we'll go deeper on some of this stuff when we have an opportunity. It's definitely one of the things we want to be able to do on these airwaves is give people such as yourself who are annuities for horse racing with the amount of money that you bet every year, one of the most important customers in the whole game. You should be able to have a forum to talk about your I'll call them grievances, and I mean that in like the sincere way, not the like sarcastic way that sometimes gets used, thanks to Frank Costanza and them. But talk about issues with the game in a way that promotes dialogue and a chance to make things better. It's I know you're not somebody who just wants to scream into the void, Sean. You're somebody who loves racing and wants to see it get better. And your frustration, especially when it comes to these issues of timing, completely understandable. And people in the industry should be willing to not only take that criticism, but work with people like you and me and JK to try to make things better.
Absolutely, they should. And most of it is just spending money to upgrade whatever shitty timing system they have implemented, but they just refuse to do it. I mean, that's what frustrates me the most is none of the fixes are really that complicated. It's just the willingness to do it and the willingness to say we need to improve our product to survive. But nobody really wants to do that.
Yeah, it's money, and it's looking at the game beyond the next quarter or even the next year. It's trying to think, hey, we people who love racing, we're here for the long haul. We want racing to be better in 3 years and 5 years and 10 years. And we need more people to look at it that way who are in positions of power. And I mean, I agree with you that it's frustrating. And, we could obviously, we've got partnerships with a lot of people in positions of power in the game. But I honestly mean it when I say that I've seen some indications of people who look at it the way that we do, who are on the inside and are working to make changes. But when you're talking about big institutional changes, it's not a question of it's a 20-ton animal that doesn't turn around easily. The way to do it is not to turn it around 180. It's to do it a few degrees at a time. And I agree, even as far as turning the ship a few degrees at a time goes, I'd like to see more progress than we've seen. But I'm not completely. It sounds like you're more cynical about some of this stuff than I am.
Maybe. I mean, I think change is possible. I don't think it's probable.
Yeah. Well, you've been doing this a long time, and I think your cynicism in many ways is warranted. I'll say it that way. And then we should definitely let's set aside some time to do maybe an evergreen show about some of this stuff and get some industry people on and promote some real dialogue. Would you be willing to put some effort into a show like that?
Sure, absolutely.
Excellent.
Anytime I get a chance to air my grievances, I'm a happy camper. So.
Hey, I should have said this earlier in the show. You're going to be here in Saratoga, and we're going to do a live at the Brentwood Show on next Saturday, 10:30. We want folks to come out. There's a lot of good stuff happening there. This week was the return of the bagels, so you can come. You can get free breakfast. We timed it very specifically at 10:30 with the thought that you can go watch horses work in the morning, and then Saratoga kicks you out for an hour while they get everything ready for the day. You come over with us, you eat some bagels, you listen to us yap a little bit, and then we'll hang out for a few minutes after. We had a nice little crowd there on Saturday. Acacia and I hung out for a few minutes after. It was fun getting to meet people. We encourage everybody to show up, and if you can't make it, you can always listen to it as a podcast as well. But you looking forward to your visit to Saratoga?
Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, I'm so excited. I get there right at first post on Wednesday, and I get the whole racing week. So I'm thrilled. I'll miss my girls, but sometimes that's got to happen.
Yeah, this will be fun, and I'll tell you what. In another year, you got to do the whole family trip. Unbelievable amount of family activities up here as well. But something nice about doing something little horse player centric too.
Yeah, absolutely. My plan was to do like a 2-week stint this year and do a week family and a week without. But just, with COVID and all, everything going on, it was just hard to plan that. So I think we'll try to do that next year and just be up there for a while.
I love it. The degenerate Flophouse could easily become the alternate Casa Borman for a week if you need it, my friend.
I don't know. You don't have a pool back there, Pete. My girls are going to require a swimming facility of some sort. They're very high maintenance. It's really not encouraging for the future, but
there's always Airbnb. Good stuff, Sean. Let's wrap this up. Keep it lean and mean for this special Sunday show. I'd like to thank Sean Borman for getting up early and coming on with us. We'll thank the special guest star on the show, that incredibly loud Cardinal in your backyard or wherever you're hanging out. We'll give the Cardinal a shout out. Hopefully he got in touch with whoever he was looking for, and everything's okay over there with the birds at your casa. And who else? We'll thank our friends at Naira and Naira Bets for sponsoring this special edition of the show. Also brought to you in part by In the Money Plus. For more about our service there, extra podcast notes on the shows, etc., check out inthemoneypodcast.com/plus. That's going to do it for this edition of the show, which has been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos.